One of the most British things on earth. Eton mess. By mess, the Brits mean a big mixture of food. Strawberries, whipped cream, and crumpled up meringue cookies. And of course, by cookies, I mean biscuits. It's a cafeteria classic from Eton College. By college, of course, the Brits mean public school. And by public school, of course, they mean private school. It's posh schoolboy food. I'm going to show you 4 slightly different ways of making it, plus one very different way. The meringue you want to make the day before. A couple of eggs in a mixing bowl, fish out the yolks. Some people are grossed out about it, but this is increasingly my favorite way to separate eggs. You have a lot more control, and you're less likely to puncture the egg on its shell. For the traditional recipe, you don't use the yolks at all, so save those for something else. A shake of cream of tartar in there to stabilize the foam, or a few drops of lemon would do instead. Beat until you've got a stiff foam, like that. Just takes a couple of minutes. For a baked meringue, you generally want 25 or 30 grams of sugar per white. So I've got 50 grams, half a cup of granulated sugar that I'm gradually beating in. With this much sugar, there is a risk you could collapse the foam if you put it all in at once. Beat some more until it's nice and stiff. Maybe give it a tiny pinch of salt for flavor and a splash of vanilla, and that's done. To make these pretty, you'd normally squeeze the batter out of a piping bag with a star tip on the end, but we're literally just going to crumple these up, so I'm spooning out dollops. You still have to bake them as distinct cookies, or maybe as like long, narrow strips. If you just tried to bake it as one single blob, it would not have enough surface area. It wouldn't be crunchy enough. Now, I made these with granulated sugar. Brits might use castor sugar, which is kind of halfway between granulated and powdered sugar. I can't buy castor sugar here, but some people do use powdered sugar for meringue, and I'm curious if it'll make any difference. So I'm doing this all again with about 2/3 of a cup of powdered sugar. It's less dense, so you need a slightly greater volume for the same weight, 50 or 60 grams. Interestingly, it's less stiff at this stage than the one we did with granulated sugar. We seem to have lost more air. That surprises me. I would think bigger sugar grains would have punctured more bubbles, but maybe the tiny particles are actually more disruptive to the bubble structure. No idea, but we'll see how they bake up. And for one other experiment, I'm going to make some chocolate meringues. Same exact recipe, except at the end, you work in a couple of teaspoons of cocoa powder per egg. These are going to be good enough to eat on their own. Certainly you can just buy meringue cookies instead, but those are not as common in stores where I live as they are along the Thames. Bake at a real low temperature, 225 Fahrenheit, 110 C. Powdered sugar meringues are on the top. Chocolate on the bottom. Bake for an hour, hour and a half, until they don't look wet anymore. They should still look shiny, but not wet. Then ideally, you just turn off the heat and leave them to cool down and dry out. Just go to bed. Good night. Here they are the next day. Granulated sugar. These ones look surprisingly nice as simple dollops. Nice open texture inside. The ones with powdered sugar do not look as nice, and they do not taste as nice. Super dense. I'm shocked. The chocolate ones are awesome, of course. The cocoa powder gives them a moister, chewier texture like gluten-free brownies. Not traditional for Eton mess, but I'm not a Brit. I'm just imitating a Brit on the internet. Hey, is anybody imitating me on the internet? Let's check with Aura, the sponsor of this video.
True story. One time I got this voicemail and this scary voice said, "Adam, I like your videos, but I found this private information about you, so you'd better send me 1,000 Bitcoin," as though I have any idea how to do that. My wife got a similar voicemail, but he forgot to turn on his little voice transformer, and he realized that halfway through and went, "Oh crap," and hung up. I'm not worried about that kid, but there are smart criminals out there, and I'm worried about them, so Aura.
Aura is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all combined into one easy-to-use app. It gives you near real-time alerts on things like credit inquiries, somebody's trying to open up a loan in your name.
Imagine just trying to log into your email one day and then you realize that, oh, the password has been changed hours ago. And then there's all of these messages from like the bank and from your credit cards and Lord knows what else.
I signed up with Aura and immediately saw that one of my passwords is posted in 15 places on the dark web. That's not great.
Protect your family and yourself from identity theft at aura.com/Adam. That link is in the description.
Sign up right now and Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link. See how many times Aura finds your personal info out there. 2 weeks free with my link. Thank you, Aura. Anyway, when the meringues are dry, you just crumple them, as fine or as chunky as you want them. The finer you make the crumbs, the faster they're going to dissolve in the dish, so I'd lean toward big chunks. The plurality of the bulk of the dish is generally whipped cream, so whip up plenty of cream. You won't need this much. I'm making a lot because I'm doing a lot of experiments. It always looks like nothing is happening, but wait 5 minutes, the membranes on the fat globule suddenly bust open, they tangle and form a mesh, and boom, whipped cream. People generally mix a little sugar into this along with some vanilla, making this chantilly cream, but the other elements of the dish are sweet too, so I say make the cream a little undersweet on its own. Hey, for once I didn't over-whip it. I like when it's super silky like that. If you take it any further, it starts to get kind of rough and cheesy. So, strawberries. You can use all kinds of berries, but strawberries are the tradition. I'll cut off all the calyxes. That can't be the plural of calyx, but for this version, I'm going to slice them. I want reasonably thin pieces because I'm not going to mash or cook these. I'm just going to macerate them. Scatter in a couple spoonfuls of sugar, depending on how sweet the strawberries already are, and if you want, you can do some booze. I'll do a drop of gin. Then you just let that sit for a while, and the sugar will break the strawberries down a bit and form a syrup about them, like that. So the way I'm sure they did this back at the Eton cafeteria was in one big batch. Cream, strawberries and their juices, the proportions are up to you, and then some meringue crumbles. You have to wait to mix that together until right before you eat, because the meringue is going to start dissolving immediately. Dose out individual bowls and eat. I absolutely love the contrast between the crunchy, marshmallowy meringue and the soft cream. But I feel like I'm not getting enough strawberry from the macerated strawberries. Maybe that'd work if you had really good, perfectly in-season strawberries, but I do not. So for version number 2, I'm going to quarter the strawberries. I want somewhat bigger chunks. And then 2/3 of the strawberries I will put into some narrow vessel, throw in a couple spoons of sugar, and then blitz, as the Brits would say. If you don't have a blender, you could just mash them real good with the back of a fork. Want smooth, I'll throw in my 1/3 of intact strawberry quarters for some textural contrast, and let's try mixing that into the cream. I think I like about 2 parts cream to 1 part strawberries by volume, and about 1 part meringue chunks. The reason I'm gently folding these together is not to keep the foam from collapsing. It won't. We established that in a recent video. You could just stir it until homogeneous, but I don't want it homogeneous. I want elegant pink streaks running through it. Gorgeous. And the taste is far superior. I'm just getting way more strawberry from the pureed strawberries. The presentation, all mixed up together, that's school luncherific, but let's try the more elegant option, which is to layer the ingredients in a glass, parfait style. I think I could have made that look a little nicer, but I like having the dry meringue chunks on top. Great crunch, and you can mix everything up yourself as you eat, which is kind of fun. I guess that was version number 3. Version number 4 is going to start much the same way. Quartered strawberries. This time I will use a little lime juice for extra acid, not necessary. And I'm going to grab 2/3 of the strawberries and cook them with maybe half of that lime juice, some sugar, and a little spoon of starch. Stir, and the moisture that comes out of the berries should be enough to dissolve and disperse everything, but if you're cooking this and it just seems a little too dry, like stuff is going to burn, you could throw in some water or gin, and cook until the starch has visibly gelatinized and the berries are soft enough to mash. You could use the stick blender again, but this will be chunkier. You got to chill this all the way down, and then you can mix in the remaining strawberry quarters. We want to preserve their freshness. A small spoon is really the safest way to get the cream into the glass without smudging the sides. Drop in a little at a time. I think the key to getting clean layers is going to be to make them really thick. Plenty of cream, plenty of meringue, a thick band of strawberries on top, more cream, top with the meringue to preserve crunch. Yeah, this version is the winner for me. I love the velvety jam-like texture we get from the cornstarch and from the cooked berries, and we still get fresh flavor and texture from the raw berries. I could do without the lime juice, though. To someone of my general demographic, strawberry plus lime or lemon really does taste like Kool-Aid. Okay, what if you don't want to waste the egg yolks? Well, you could make pastry cream. 2 yolks, a tablespoon of starch, teaspoon of flour, quarter cup of sugar, 50 grams, splash of vanilla, maybe a pinch of salt, and then just enough milk at first to get you a very thick paste. It's easier to whisk lumps out of a thick paste. People use much more elaborate mixing procedures to avoid lumps, but I think this is fine. A whole cup of milk is in there now, 237 mils, and I just turn my heat on high and bring this to a boil while whisking constantly. This is not the safest way to do it, but it is the easiest. All of a sudden, it'll thicken. I might have a few little lumps in there, but who cares? Make sure it's actually boiling before you stop. Egg yolk thickens at a lower temperature. The starch actually needs to boil. Heat off, work in a couple tablespoons of butter, and then chill all the way down. Then you can mix that with equal parts whipped cream by volume to yield creme diplomat, my new favorite thing. Some people put dissolved gelatin in this to thicken it up some more, but I don't think that's necessary. Into this somewhat more robust base, I am going to put my chocolate meringues and some sliced bananas. Apparently Eton mess was originally made with bananas. This is not Eton mess, but it is real good. This recipe and my favorite of the traditional strawberry recipes are what you will find in the description. Either way, don't feel pressured to layer a fancy parfait in a glass. You can just mix it up. Remember, it's school lunch.